FOS TV is brought to you by the Lions Den. The Den always has been and always will be about enjoying family and friends in an environment steeped in Happy Valley tradition. So come back to the Den, the perfect place to recall old memories while creating new ones.
There's no Joe Paterno press conference to wrap up this week, so we're here at the Penn State Wrestling facility with none other than Jeff Ironhead Byers. It's Penn State Wrestling Media Day. Cael Sanderson met the media, and if you could see behind us, a lot of the athletes are talking to the reporters and such, coming off a national championship year. Ironhead, it seemed to me, I'm not a big wrestling guy, as you know. I like the pro wrestling a little bit, but it seemed to me as if the big news out of Cael's press conference was Andrew Alton going to redshirt.
Yeah, he confirmed that, I think, for the first time publicly. Well, I know for the first time publicly. And basically, it's a situation where they did try to get Andrew down. They wanted to see if they got him down to 141, how he would fare, and the plan was to kind of wrestle him off and see how things went. In the process of trying to get down to 141, I think both Andrew and the coaches realized it's just too much weight for him to lose and wrestle effectively. Certainly, if he had to do it, he could get down there. But it's a long season. It's a grind. And you have a guy that still has 3 years of eligibility left. You have some good guys in the room that I think can step in there nicely at 141. Why try to kill the guy and you're not sure what you're going to get at the end of the season? Because it's a tremendous pull for him to get to 141 this year. He has grown into a true 49-pounder. So
yeah, and his twin brother's what, 57? So I mean, those kids are not little guys.
No, and Dylan is losing weight to get to 57. I mean, that's not an easy pull for him. It's not a huge pull, but it's it's definitely he's losing weight to get down there to 57. So yeah, I think both these kids have grown a little bit since they've gotten to Penn State, and I think Dylan will be a real factor at 157. I think he's right now the leading candidate. I mean, it's a group of 5 really good wrestlers right now in the room at 157, but I think Dylan Alton is starting to emerge as the likely starter for this team at that weight.
The other thing that I think a lot of people would be interested in is Cael. I thought he was vague on his own wrestling, what he intends to do, which he's kind of been throughout. I mean, you know him probably as well as anybody here, and he's been vague about it. What is your take? Am I reading that? Number one, it seemed like he was being vague, but what is your overall take on this?
Yeah, I think he's being intentionally vague. Truthfully, I think the big thing for him is he does not want the focus to be on his athletic career and anything that would detract from the team and the attention the team gets. And even behind closed doors, the conversations I've had with him and some of the other coaches, he won't confirm it, but he is going to compete. I mean, he wants to wrestle in the Olympic trials. The whole reason I think he competed this year was to see, is that a legitimate possibility for me? Where am I on the world stage? And I think he came away from the World Championships realizing that, you know what, I tweak a thing here or there, I could win the gold medal again. And I think that is very much in his mind and in his heart. I really think his vagueness is just trying to put the media distraction away, because I think he fears too many questions coming up about it and too many ongoing things. So while I don't think he has 100% definitively committed to it, I think in his mind he is doing it, and I'll be shocked if he's not in the Olympic trials about a month after the Nationals end in March.
It's pretty funny. We're like caged animals in here. Everybody's back here looking at us. For people who aren't hardcore wrestling fans, how practical is it for him to be able to coach at this level and also try to compete at that level?
To me, it is one of the more remarkable stories. I think what he did this last season, both coaching this team to a national title and then competing on the world stage, was significant. The two things that I think make it possible for him to do it successfully here at Penn State is, number one, him. I mean, he trains with the wrestlers, and that's really what sparked this idea in his mind, is that last offseason, a year ago, he said he was getting a little bored over the summer, felt like he was wasting time. Now, this would be the 2 hours a day that he had for his time, but he felt like he needed to do something else to use that time. And he felt while he was training his wrestlers in that offseason that, you know what, I'm still able to go with these guys, obviously. And they started to bring in the Nittany Lions Wrestling Club members and some guys like Jake Varner, who he coached out at Iowa State. And I think he started to kind of gauge himself and start thinking seriously that maybe one of the things I could do with my free time is get back into this thing. And I think the competitive drive never really did leave him, and I think he saw the opportunity here. The second thing, though, at Penn State is the support he has. I mean, Cael Sanderson is in name the associate head coach, but the truth is, and Cael would tell you this, he is a co-head coach. I mean, Cody does an awful lot of the scheduling, a lot of the meat that goes behind the coaching. I mean, Cael, with the setup they have here, is really able to just coach, to go in, train with his guys, work with guys on particular techniques, and a lot of the paperwork. I mean, there's some stuff that he obviously has to sign off on, but a lot of that stuff is handled by Cody and Casey Cunningham, and I think that the support he has from the administration here and from this coaching staff really enables him to give this a serious go and have an opportunity to be successful both as a coach and as a competitor.
Yeah, it's interesting talking to Quentin Wright, defending national champion. You ask him, how do you keep your head on straight? And he said, well, it's easy. You know, you have a head coach who will literally smash your face into the mat every day, and that actually helps you, keep focused like that. Some of the other news: the Long kid obviously got into a jam off the mat. He's not enrolled in school. He's out of school now. Cael said that he's trying to be supportive of him as best he can, but also knows the seriousness of that situation. I thought he handled that about as well as you could. That's a very dicey subject to talk about, and it's a terrible situation. I don't know that there was any right answers there, but I thought he did a good job handling it.
Yeah, I actually did too, and I've talked with him about it a few times. And the thing about it from Cael's perspective is, people need to realize he did have a long history. I mean, it wasn't like just in the recruiting process. He knows Andrew Long from when Andrew Long was like in elementary school, and he knows that family very well. And I think Cael, by his own admission, didn't realize quite the degree of the problem that Andrew Long had, and he obviously has a problem with alcohol, regardless of what did or didn't happen in that apartment that night. There are some serious issues that are finally being addressed, and I think Andrew is getting counseling, and he's really taking the program that he's in right now very seriously, and I think he realizes, this is a life-defining moment, whether or not he goes to jail, and regardless of how this trial ends, he needs to make changes in his life, and I think he realizes that maybe for the first time, really how much he has to make those changes. And I think to Cael's credit, it's not like Andrew got in trouble and Cael said, all right, get out of here, we'll see. I mean, it was Andrew's decision to leave the school. They have stayed in touch, and Andrew stayed in touch with some of his teammates here as well. I mean, he is being very particular about who he associates with these days. I think he realizes kind of the shaky ground he's on right now in terms of the rest of his life. Wrestling's obviously a big part of it, and if he can get, we'll see what happens with the trial, but if the trial turns to a favorable outcome for him, I think he still envisions a day where he could come back and compete. I don't know whether or not it would be at Penn State, but he's obviously got a long way to go before that would happen. But I think Cael, to his credit, has been very supportive of Andrew and of the family in going through what is obviously just a very tough situation for both for Andrew and obviously for the family that's involved in the incident as well.
Yeah, Ed Ruth, the guy that a lot of people think is going to compete for a national championship, he was right there last year. He had a bit of an off the mat issue, not quite as serious, but it sounds like he's back in the fold and in good stead and everything else.
Yeah, and truthfully, I mean, without getting into all of the details of that and the he said type of situation, I think a little more of that was maybe made than what actually happened. I think Ed was what prompted the whole incident down there was Ed just trying to basically find a way to contact some people that he was trying to find a way to get back to his place, and I think there may have been a little misunderstanding, and it obviously escalated, and I think Ed regrets being in that situation, but I really think the more facts we've learned about that, it wasn't a whole lot that Ed did all that wrong, and I think they've certainly got his attention, the coaching staff has, but Ed Ruth is just such an easygoing guy and has been he's the last guy in this roster, and not that it's a roster that you would think would have a lot of incidents, but he is literally the last guy in this roster that I would think would be involved in any trouble, because he is just such an easygoing guy and so calm, really, in just about every situation.
One other bit of news, Wade, the heavyweight, sounds like he's getting back into action, had a knee issue. He's a really important guy for them, obviously.
Yeah, he's critical just because they don't have a lot of depth at heavyweight right now. John Gingrich, the kid from Bald Eagle area, tremendous athlete, but really still learning what college wrestling is all about and how to adjust to the college style. So while John Gingrich has tremendous upside, he's clearly not there yet in terms of being able to be competitive on the national stage against the type of competition that Penn State will face. And Cameron Wade right now is a guy that I think can legitimately contend for a national title. I mean, I think he has developed his game to that point. And I think in some ways, much like Ed Ruth, Cael talked about it during the press conference, I think both of them actually benefit a little bit from not being on the mat over the summer. They both tend to perform a little better when they have a little time away and it's kind of fresh for them. And I think Cameron Wade is excited now about the opportunity he has in his senior year to cap off his career in style. They may be a little cautious with Cameron. My guess is in the first month or so, I mean, I think the knee's back and it's recovered, but I think they want to make sure he is fully confident that in any situation it'll hold up. And so it wouldn't surprise me if he maybe sits out the first couple of meets, but he's definitely going to be ready to go, and I think he's ready for a real big season.
Final wrestle-offs, I guess, is that how you would describe it? They've done it a little bit, but it's Thursday night. What are some of the key weights to look at, and who are some of the newcomers that people want to have their eyes open for here at Rec Hall?
Yeah, I think the intra-squad meet is what they call it, and I think it's going to be
wrestle-offs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It used to be wrestle-offs, but I think it's going to be exciting to see several guys. Obviously, fans, I think, are going to be excited to see Nico Megaludis, the freshman at 125, who will win that spot, and Morgan McIntosh, who, barring something very unforeseen, will win the spot at 197. And those two are both guys that I think can come in and contribute immediately. Megaludis is just a goer. Very coachable kid, very anxious to participate on this team and to make an impact in a positive way. And McIntosh is just one of those rare guys. I mean, a couple of wrestling insiders with the program who have been around it as long as I have said that he is as ready to compete at the collegiate level as Kerry Kolat was coming out of high school. Cael has commented in a couple of interviews with me that McIntosh is the most prepared kid coming out of high school as a true freshman to compete at the collegiate level. So I think they have a couple of real special kids there that are going to contribute. As far as the intra-squad meet, I think the weight class, well, there's two weight classes that I think are going to be most intriguing. 141, where Brian Pearsall and Sam Sherlock have been going back and forth a little bit. Sherlock won a close match in the wrestling room. Pearsall pinned him in their first meeting in the wrestling room. I think Pearsall has a little more experience, a little more leverage. I think Sherlock has more athleticism and more natural tools, but Brian Pearsall is really a goer, and to me, he's just one of those neat stories that on this team of all stars, of 5-star recruits and blue-chip athletes, this is a guy that came in unheralded out of high school, has started for a couple of years, and everybody figured would be pushed by the wayside here as a redshirt junior, and I think Pearsall is at least going to give Sherlock a run for his money, if not win the spot outright. And 157, I think they're going to go with Dylan Alton and Dirk Coburn in the wrestle-off, or in the intra-squad meet on Thursday night. Those two have been winning close matches over James Woolrath and Nick Fisher, and James English is a guy that they're being a little cautious with. He still has that ongoing neck and back problem, but James English is a guy that if he's healthy can be right there, and I really think they have 3 or 4 guys that could be All-Americans at that weight. Dylan Alton just seems to have a little extra explosiveness and a little extra urgency when he needs it to get the pointer points, and I think it's hard for me to see any of the other guys as good as they are bidding out Dylan Alton with the way he's wrestling right now.
Penn State, a lot of people thought they were ahead of schedule last year, winning a national title. Is anything short of a national title good enough now? I mean, that's the scary thing about it. Cael has obviously done it as a wrestler, but it's going to be interesting to see if he can do the same thing, keep everybody motivated, it team-wise, because it would seem, and I don't want to answer the question for you, that anything short of a national title will be viewed as a disappointment this year.
I think that's absolutely true. Because this team on paper is better than last year's team was, and obviously last year's team won the national championship. I really think Cael and this coaching staff deserves a ton of credit for the way they have approached this, though, with this team. They have said repeatedly, and I don't think it took much for the team to buy into it, but that, listen, last year was great, and it will never be taken away. That national championship is yours. It is in the memory banks. It is in the vaults. It is for all time a Penn State national championship, but it has nothing to do with the upcoming season. And it's not that you're trying to defend anything. It's that now you want to go out and prove yourself again. And I really think Cael keeps this room fun and competitive, and for as intense as it is, and it's obviously a very hard sport, they go out of their way to make sure these guys are having fun, that they're doing some things to keep the competitive fires stoked, even aside from wrestling. And I think that this team is hungry. I think you have some guys like Frank Molinaro, who is going to become a four-time All-American if he stays healthy, and the only thing he hasn't done is win a national title. David Taylor, it is eating at him that he didn't win the national title last year. Ed Ruth knows what he's capable of. I think Cameron Wade wants to finish his career on a high note. So from an individual standpoint, I just think they have so many guys that are individually motivated. We talked about McIntosh and Megaludis and the freshmen wanting to make the impact. Brian Pearsall wants to be an All-American, wants to prove that he does belong on this team of All-Stars. You just go up and down that lineup, and there are guys that still want something to prove. Quentin Wright wants to become Penn State's first three-time national champion. I mean, that's a motivating factor for him. So I just think when you look at each of the individuals there, they are so motivated for their individual goals that I think they understand what the team goal is, and if they all meet their individual goals, truthfully, Penn State would win the national title going away. Now, whether or not they all meet those goals remains to be seen, but I think this team, both the coaching staff and the wrestlers themselves, are taking the right approach, and I think this is a team that will remain very motivated. I don't think there's any chance of complacency after winning the national title last year setting in, and to me, regardless of how this season goes, I think Penn State will be the most exciting team to watch. It's just a dynamic team. Megaludis is going to be entertaining. McIntosh is a goer, the newcomer at 97, and obviously, Quentin Wright can put on a show. Ed Ruth can put on a show. David Taylor may be as close to untouchable this year as we've seen a collegiate wrestler since Cael's final couple of seasons at Iowa State. So again, they may stub their toes somewhere along the way. There may be some injuries. You never know. But on paper and with the way this team is performing right now in the wrestling room, I just think whether it's the best team or not, we'll find out. I think it's going to be by far the most exciting team to watch in the country.
I just wish they had a play-by-play guy who was enthusiastic and liked to talk about wrestling and had a few more words to say.
From what I understand, they're working on that, and I've been told I need to work on. I'm going to try to amp it up a little bit this year. That's my commitment to you. Is I'm not resting on last year's announcement. I'm going to try to bring a little enthusiasm to the table this year.
So there you go. It's Jeff Ironhead Byers. You could hear him across the Penn State radio network calling Penn State wrestling all year. Also the Cael Sanderson show, right?
Yeah, and that'll start Wednesday night and this week before the intra-squad meet. And then it is hard to believe. I mean, I guess we say it every year, but it is really hard to believe. It feels like it was just a few weeks ago that we were celebrating in downtown Philadelphia the national title, and here we go with another season, but very much looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Ironhead, thanks for joining us, and now we're going to go out there and hit the mat.
Absolutely. Bring it on.